Hi, assalamu alaikum everyone. It's Leah again. I'm going to be doing another live talk today. Last time I did one, I was talking about the concept of Tazkiyah, which is purification of the soul. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a recap and then talk about some other concepts because it's a really broad topic. So I could probably do a good handful of sessions talking about this. It really is sort of all-encompassing in Islamic life, or it should be anyway. So, like I said, tazkiyah is something that we all know about, even if we don't know the Arabic word. It's basically purification of the soul. Last time I did a live session, I talked about a couple of different points. One of them being purification of the soul in being consistent with your daily prayers, which is a really basic thing that inshallah we're all doing. And even if you're finding yourself in a place where you're struggling with your faith, which is something that we all go through, inshallah, just like sticking to your prayers, even if you have to force yourself sometimes, which isn't ideal, but even if you have to, that can help to achieve, purification of the soul, and inshallah that can help you to feel stronger in your Islam again. I also talked about reading the Quran in depth, especially for converts. For everyone, but especially for converts, making sure you have a translation, because while the Quran in Arabic is something that really unites us all, which is something that's amazing about Islam, subhanAllah, it's important to understand the meaning of it. Just saying sounds that you don't understand doesn't do much. I also talked about tazkiyah through dhikr, so remembrance of Allah. That's one of my favorite things to do. A lot of religions have something sort of similar. For example, in some areas of Buddhism, they do chants. It's not quite the same, but it's a similar concept. Pick a phrase that really speaks to you. One thing that I love to say is La ilaha illallah, because it's the foundation, it's the basic concept of Islam, and it's what drew me to Islam. So saying it, just repeating it to yourself or saying it with other pieces of remembrance of Allah, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar, just repeating that until you really feel it. That's something that I like to do, and it's something that helps me feel centered on my prayers. And I am going to get to the new stuff, I promise, but I just want to restate that, especially if you don't know Arabic very well, saying the prayers can become mechanical. And I think it's true for all of us that at some point we go through our prayers in a mechanical way. And I have found that, making zikr before my prayer, it really helps me to become centered and grounded on it and really put some feeling into it, rather than it just being routine. And then I also talked about curing the heart of arrogance, which is a very human problem. And we've all been there before, where we think we're, the best or whatever it may be. And it leads to arrogance. And that is not cool, so to put it lightly. So anyway, that's what I covered last time. I did just get a question. Someone is asking how I got motivated about Islam. I'm not 100% sure I understand the question. I'm going to answer it the way that I think it's meant. How do I get motivated about Islam? Like, how do I get motivated to fulfill my Islamic obligations? It can be hard. I mean, I don't think it's useful to pretend that it's easy to be a good Muslim all the time. I think that that's a really common thing that we see. People are really trying to put forward this image of being good and pious all the time, but really we all struggle. So sometimes it can be hard to be motivated. But I just mentioned that remembrance of Allah is something that really helps me personally, and it's so easy to do. Like you can do it. It doesn't have to be loud. You can do it when you're at work, just sitting at your desk, doing whatever it is that you need to do, and just saying quietly to yourself, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, whatever it is. And to me, and that might not work for everyone, but to me, that's something that really helps like ground me and center me and keep my heart centered around Islam. If that isn't what you meant by that question, if you could clarify, I'd be happy to revisit. So I'm going to be talking about a couple of other concepts today that have to do with Tazkiyah. Like I said, Tazkiyah is so broad. Almost anything you could probably bring it back. Almost anything, in Islam, you could probably bring it back to purification of the soul. One concept I'm going to start with is, and I think this is really, really important when I talk about, is sabr. So that's usually roughly translated as patience. That's not a perfect translation, and it is a dangerous concept if you don't understand it thoroughly. So having sabr is a really important concept or not concept, but is a really important piece of the puzzle of achieving purification of the soul and purification of your Islam. But a lot of people think it just sort of means sitting around and being like, okay, we'll have sabr, whatever happens, happens. But you have to remember, and I think it was, I can't remember, but I think it was Yasmin Mujahid who said, who made famous this spiel about sabr being an action. It's something that you do. And a really common theme, and this is something I'm gonna probably, there's a dead horse I'm going to keep beating. A really common theme is, a woman in an abusive marriage. She goes for advice to a sheikh who says, oh, just have sabr, sister, inshallah, Allah will change his heart. Just show him how much you love him, blah, blah, blah. That's not sabr. Sabr is an action. Sabr is having the patience and the strength to leave when you need to leave. And this is, sabr is shockingly another concept that's just so huge and so broad, and I could probably talk about it the whole time. But so not only having patience, but perfecting your concept of sabr and having patience in inaction when it's required, and having patience in action when it's required, depending on the circumstance, obviously, is another thing that really ties into purification of the soul and purification of the heart. When you are in a situation, and again, I'm just talking about one tiny little aspect of sabr. It's all encompassing, but this is my go-to example, is the woman in the abusive marriage. So when you're in a situation that is toxic and you're just putting up with it, there is no way that you can keep your heart and your soul and your Islam pure, surrounded by toxicity. If you're in a room with dangerous pathogens and you breathe it, you're going to get infected. You understand what I'm saying? You can't be surrounded by toxicity and just say, okay, well, I'm going to be patient. That's not how sabr works. So in order to achieve this idea of purification of the heart, it's important to take action in sabr when it's needed. Sometimes inaction is also necessary, but everyone knows about that part. I might have a couple more questions. I'm going to scroll through those. One question is it difficult for you to offer the Fajr prayers, or is it easy? Sometimes it's difficult and sometimes it's easy. I have a little Fitbit thing, and I set an alarm on it. So every day it vibrates at, whatever time I set it to. And sometimes I have slept through it. In fact, once I had a dream that my Fitbit was vibrating. It actually was vibrating, but the thing is, it goes again like 10 minutes later. So I ended up waking up. So it's easy to set an alarm to wake up. Getting out of bed can be difficult. But sometimes it's also easy because at least where I live, we're getting to the part of the year where like sunrise is getting so late that I can just wake up at my normal time and offer Fajr prayer. So uh, for me, the most difficult part is getting out of bed. You know, once you get out of bed, it's easy. You know, you're out of bed, you might as well pray. So that was that question. Another person asked if I am admin of this group. No, I am not. Oh, that was already answered. Okay. All right. So that is all. Those are all the questions I have so far. So I'm going to go back to my notes here. I'm sorry for always looking away, but I have my notes written in my notebook here. So increasing sabr is a good way to strengthen tazkiyah, strengthen purification of the heart. Another thing to keep in mind is trying to decrease your attachment to dunya things. And again, I'm probably going to say this over and over again. This is probably something that we all struggle with. We are surrounded by things. We live in a material society. And I think this is true. This is not just a North American thing or a Western thing. This exists across Muslim cultures. I mean, the world is mostly a material place these days. It is what it is, and it's excuse me. There's no separating it. We can't just say like, okay, I'm not going to live in a material world. I mean, that's not how it works. The importance, or the thing to keep in mind, is to not become attached to material things. And I do want to make kind of a clarifying statement on this. It doesn't mean that we can't like our things. You know, it doesn't mean that we can't enjoy our life. We can really like our car, or I have a KitchenAid mixer. I love that thing. And that's fine. You're allowed to like your things. The important thing is to not get so attached to it that it becomes something that pulls you away from Islam. This is kind of dramatic, but and this, I don't think this is really a realistic thing, but since I brought up the KitchenAid mixer, I'm just gonna go with it. So, for example, if I loved my KitchenAid mixer so much, I wanted to spend all my time polishing it and cleaning it and using it and getting it nice and perfectly shiny, so that I was always missing prayers, or I was, you know, not fulfilling my Islamic obligations to my family or whatever. Decreasing your attachment to dunya is more in that regard. Like, you can like your car, but you can't neglect your family because you're so obsessed with cleaning your car and getting it fixed and taking it to shows or whatever. You have to make sure that you're fulfilling your Islamic obligations while not becoming attached to the things of this dunya. And that also means having a healthy ability to get rid of the things of this dunya when it's necessary. And those aren't just objects. That's not just your car. That's not just your KitchenAid mixer. That's, you know, relationships that are no good. A friend or a spouse even who is so toxic to you that it's pulling you away from Islam. Those are things of this dunya as well. Relationships, you know, making sure that you're not so attached to maintaining a relationship with a certain person that it's pulling you away from Islam. People most often bring up the example of having non-Muslim friends, but in my personal experience, it's not my non-Muslim friends who keep me away from Islam. As a matter of fact, my very best friend is not Muslim, and I just got together with her last weekend, and we had a long talk about God. She's not Muslim, but she believes in God, and we had a really long talk about theology and religion and a lot of stuff there, and that's more than I've talked to any Muslim about God lately. It's not about Muslim or non-Muslim. It's about how that person enables you or prevents you or not, it's not even that person's fault, I don't want to say, because you can't control other people. You can only control yourself. So it's about how you act around other people. And so I'm kind of going off on a thing here, but my point here is that relationships are also part of the dunya that you want to make sure to maintain in a healthy way. And it seems like I'm getting away from the actual concept of tazkiyah, but it's really hard to just talk about that one concept, because the only thing I can do to talk about tazkiyah specifically really is to define it, and I can't really talk about the definition for a half hour. The thing is, and the beautiful thing about this subject is, like I said, and I'm sorry I'm being repetitive, but it is so broad. All of this, everything has to do with purification of the soul. It's like, think of anything about Islam, any topic. Doing anything in Islam correctly is going to help you towards the purification of your soul, which is amazing and beautiful, subhanAllah, but it makes it difficult to make it seem like the whole thing is centered around tazkiyah, because it is just so broad. And that being said, I'm going to go on to my next thing, which is sort of two in one. We're talking about increasing certain actions or behaviors and decreasing others. So just a brief recap, I've talked about increasing sabr or patience, making sure you know what that means and not, anyway, I won't talk about sabr again because I'll just go off on another rant about it, and then detaching yourself from dunya things. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to talk about is a bit of two in one. It's being more generous, so increasing your charity, increasing your generosity, but also decreasing showing off. And I think anyone will understand how these two things tie together. And okay, so it's really easy, because if anyone watching this video has ever given something in charity, it feels good, doesn't it? It feels really good to know that you helped another person. So, I mean, in a certain sense, it's really easy to give charity, right? Because it feels good. But here's the trick, is sometimes because it feels good, it turns into showing off. You want to say, oh, I just saw this lady who had, she didn't have good clothes. She looked like she needed a shower or whatever, and I gave her $10, and she gave me a big smile, and it was amazing. And it's not necessarily that you have the intent of bragging, but that's sort of the effect that it has. Now, there's a certain hadith that I want to reference, but I'm not going to go into specifics because I can't remember the specifics. I'm very sorry. The times when this is based on a hadith, I think it was in regards to Abu Bakr. I'm not 100% sure, but I think the times where it's okay to show off in regards to charity is when it's going to motivate others to give charity. And you really need to examine your intent, because as much as you want to tell someone about donating to the homeless lady, are you really telling them because you want to motivate them to donate to other people? Is that really? I mean, examine your intent. Only you and Allah know what's in your heart. But I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. So I think a lot of people my age, in my area of the world, and possibly others, I'm just speaking to my experience because that's all I know. A lot of us are not like, we're not overflowing with money. A lot of us are going through our own financial difficulties. So sometimes it can be difficult or impossible to donate monetarily. Sometimes when you're passing, the homeless guy on the street, you really do have no cash on you, or you really do need the $5 you have to take the bus or to take an Uber to wherever you're going to go. You need it and you can't give it. And that's okay. Okay. Remember that there's more to charity and generosity than money. Donating time, if you can, donating clothing, and even remember that even a smile is charity. So I'm going to go back to the example of, the homeless man or the homeless woman. They're so dehumanized. There are people who have fallen upon a hard time, but they're people, they're human beings. And the way that our society tends to treat those who have fallen on hard times, and I don't care if they've fallen on hard times because they're a drug addict or an alcoholic. I don't care. They're still a human being. They're still a part of Allah's creation. So you still have to treat them well. And so even giving them a smile and saying, I'm so sorry, I don't have any money. I wish you a good day, or I wish you the best of luck, or have a blessed day, or whatever. Even just that action can be an act of charity, because people are so often dehumanized and treated badly just because they've fallen on difficult times. Okay? So even if you cannot donate to them or donate with money, it doesn't mean that you're uncharitable. And then again, to tie back into showing off, which is what we're trying to avoid, giving as much as you can while avoiding telling everyone about it, because that's not the point. The point is to do the right thing. The point is to please Allah, not to show off and make yourself feel good. And it does. Like I said, it does feel good to know that you've helped someone, and to see the gratitude in someone's eyes when you do give them something that they didn't have. It feels good. But remembering that the point of that isn't to feel good. That's a benefit. And that makes it easy to keep doing it, that good feeling. But that's not the point. That's like a perk. The point is to do something that pleases Allah, and to do something that's going to benefit you and that person, inshallah, in this life and in the next life. So doing the best that you can to be generous and to give freely, but also reining your ego in, and reminding yourself, this isn't about me. It is about me in the next life, but right now this is just about pleasing Allah, so that inshallah in the next life I can be rewarded. I'm going to it looks like I might have another question here. Just one moment while I read it. Okay, so Musa from Senegal is asking, what do you think about Islam today? People think Islam is about fighting, killing. Can you tell us about it? Well, thank you, Musa, for your question. The thing is, I think that all of us watching this live session or doing this live session know that that's a lie. That's a lie that's what Islam is about. But I think that we would benefit ourselves to remember that there are people out there who are committing atrocities and saying it's because it's the Islamic thing to do. Denying that those things are happening is super shady. And it makes us look, what's the word I'm looking for? Not unreasonable, but not trustworthy if we deny that those things are happening, because they're happening. You know, people are bad people pretending to be good Muslims, and that happens. But all of us here, I think most reasonable people, even in the West, most reasonable people know that that's not what Islam is about. I mean, there are so many Muslims that if it was really about committing acts of violence and killing everyone who's not Muslim, then there would be no non-Muslims left. There are a lot of us. So I'm not really sure what else I can say about that. If you have a more specific question, if you could just submit it in the comments. Another question, how to react to the person not performing salah? I'm not sure how to answer that either. What do you mean, how do you react? It depends on the person. Is this your spouse, or is this a close friend or family member? In that case, it might be appropriate to advise them. If it's someone you don't really know, it's not always appropriate to advise them, but make dua for them that they're going to continue to make salah. And see, I think that's all the questions I have, except for how are you? I'm good, alhamdulillah, thank you. Let's see, let me just scroll through really quickly and see if there are any questions I might have missed. I don't think I missed any. If you do think of anything else, I have a couple more minutes left in the video. So like I said in the beginning, this is a super broad topic. And it is both easy and difficult to keep it centered around the concept of tazkiyah during the entire session. Just again, because it can, I mean, almost anything in Islam, you can relate to it. I mean, like I said, almost anything that I can think of, you can draw back to purification of the soul, whether it's avoiding something that is bad for you or doing something that is good for you. Either way, it's, as long as you're working towards doing the right thing, it's working towards a purification of the soul and purification of the heart, and ultimately purification of your practice of Islam, which is, of course, something that we all strive for in this life, inshallah. So I think that's it for today, because I'm not getting any more questions and I've covered my concepts. If anyone has questions, I do usually linger around the comments for a little while after my session is done. Okay, I did get one more question. What is the way of resistance if you're under occupation, under tyrants, and they are killing your brothers and sisters, etc.? Wow, that's a really big question, and I don't think I am well equipped to answer that. And the reason for that is I have been extremely fortunate, privileged, and blessed to not have lived in that sort of a situation. So it would be inappropriate of me to try and tell you or anyone who has lived in that situation how to handle it. That's not really my place. I think the only thing I can really advise is make sure that you're fulfilling your Islamic obligation. So even if you feel like you can't or you shouldn't do something actively to resist, make sure that you're still taking care of your family and doing everything that you need to do to survive. Sometimes just living and staying strong in your faith and taking care of your neighbors and yourself is an act of resistance unto itself. Thank you for that question. That's a really important one. And if there is anyone else who is more equipped to answer a question like that, if you could please help this brother, Bilal Nazir, in the comments, that would be really great. And I'll make dua for you and for all people, Muslim and non-Muslim, in this world who are living in such a situation. Thank you, everyone, for your questions and for being so active and in participating in this live video. Inshallah, I'll do another one. I don't know if it's going to be about Tazkiyah, but there'll be another one, inshallah, next month sometime. Thank you all and have a good day. Assalamu alaikum.